This is Peter Michael Whittingham. A midfield maestro with a wand of a left foot, Whittingham graced the pitch for clubs like Aston Villa, Cardiff City, and Blackburn Rovers. He was part of that legendary Aston Villa youth team that clinched the FA Youth Cup back in 2002. The following year, he made his Premier League debut, a dream come true for any young lad. He then had a couple of loan spells at Burnley and Derby County before finding his true home at Cardiff City in 2007. And what a spell it was. Over 11 seasons, Whittingham became a club legend, racking up an impressive 457 appearances and banging in 96 goals. He played a pivotal role in their championship triumph in 2013 and was there for those heart-wrenching cup final defeats in 2008 and 2012. The bloke was a class act, earning 3 spots in the championship's PFA Team of the Year. So what's all this talk about was? Where's he now? Well, fate's a cruel mistress, lads. Before we talk about his unfortunate fate, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and subscribe. Let's get to it. Before we peer to the far ends of his career, let's see how life started out for the young bloke, eh? Whittingham was born on September 8, 1984, a proper Midlands lad. He went to King Henry VIII School in Coventry, and it was there that his footballing talents started to blossom. His dad was a local legend known as Harry the Fish, due to his business as a fishmonger. While Harry himself may not have been raking it in by the millions, most definitely his sons did. And him too, very nicely. Well, you talk about family pride, eh? That just goes to show you never know where life might take you, even if you start out selling fish in Nuneaton. Whittingham started his football career with his local club, Coventry City, joining the academy at the tender age of 7, with his brother being in the youth system at that time. Peter Jr. would play on the sidelines during sessions until he was noticed by a scout from the club. He remained at Coventry for a further 9 years until the age of 16, but it was then that the wheels would come off. They didn't offer him a contract, citing he was too small to make it at professional status. Now, we all know that telling a lad he can't play because he's too small isn't always the smartest move that has ever been made by football clubs. They've missed out on some real gems over the years, and Peter Whittingham was about to prove them wrong in a big way. But amidst the disappointment, there came a glimmer of hope. Ray Gooding, Coventry's scout who'd championed Whittingham all along, wasn't about to see that talent go to waste. He picked up the old blower and gave the folks at Aston Villa a bell, singing young Peter's praises like a canary. A trial was arranged, and Whittingham grasped the opportunity with both hands. He impressed the Villa top brass, walking out with a contract with the Midlands club. It was his big career break, the opportunity to give Coventry a taste of what they were missing and show the world what he was made of. Sometimes, lads, it takes a bit of knockback to light a fire under you, and Whittingham was about to set English football on fire. A trial at Aston Villa, and he was signed on the dotted line as quickly. Whittingham signed on the dotted line at Aston Villa in April 2001, but it did not take him long to get the water running. He played for the club's FA Youth Cup winning side in 2002, showing just how much he had to promise. The following year, he got the call every young footballer dreams of. Manager Graham Taylor handed him his first team debut against Newcastle United, coming on as a halftime substitute for Gareth Barry. It was a 1-1 draw, but for Whittingham, it was the start of something special. He made a couple more appearances from the bench before earning his first start in the final game of the season, a 3-1 defeat against Leeds United. But the experience was invaluable, setting the stage for what was to come. With a new season came a new gaffer, David O'Leary, and the Irishman was quick to spot Whittingham's potential. He featured regularly in the early part of the 2003-04 season and bagged his first senior goal against Wycombe Wanderers in the League Cup third round. It was a cracking 5-0 win at Adams Park, and O'Leary was full of praise for the young lad after the match. Whittingham was virtually ever present during the opening stages of the campaign, and in November he signed a new contract that would keep him at Villa Park until 2007. He finished the season having made 39 appearances in all competitions, playing primarily as a left-sided midfielder. He also featured 6 times in the club's League Cup run, which ended in a heartbreaking semi-final defeat to Bolton Wanderers. Whittingham was unfairly blamed for the loss, but despite that, he was named Villa's Young Player of the Season. Kind of ironic, isn't it? The following season was a bit of a slog for Whittingham, lads. He spent more time warming the bench than he'd like, and despite managing to bag his only league goal for Villa in a 3-0 win over Portsmouth, it was clear he wasn't getting the game time he craved. Come February 2005, having been out of the first-team picture for what felt like an eternity, Whittingham found himself shipped off to Championship club Burnley on a 1-month loan. Burnley's gaffer, Steve Cotterill, saw something in him, hoping he'd make the same impact as Gary Cahill, another young lad they'd borrowed from Villa. Whittingham made his Burnley debut in a 1-1 draw with Crewe Alexandra, and to his credit, he started all 9 matches of his loan spell before heading back to Villa in late March. Cotterill was gutted not to keep him longer, but that's the loan game for you, innit? Whittingham started 3 of Villa's first 4 matches of the 2005-06 season, giving him a glimmer of hope. But it wasn't to be. Come September, he was back in the Championship, this time joining Derby County on a 3-month loan. He made his Derby debut 3 days later in a 2-2 draw with Southampton, but the goals just wouldn't come. He made a total of 11 appearances without finding the net before returning to Villa in November 2005, no doubt feeling a bit disillusioned. By January 2007, Whittingham's Villa career was hanging by a thread. He'd barely featured since his loan spell at Derby, making just 5 appearances. It was time for a change, and Cardiff City came calling, snapping him up for a reported fee of £350,000. It was a breath of fresh air for Whittingham, who quickly became a mainstay in the Cardiff team. He held down a first-team spot until the end of the year, even with competition from Joe Ledley on the left flank. The 2007-08 season started with Whittingham on the bench, but by mid-November, Cardiff were teetering above the relegation zone. Gaffer Dave Jones decided a reshuffle was in order, bringing Whittingham and Chris Gunner back into the starting lineup. Whittingham found himself playing on the right side of midfield, a position he wasn't too familiar with, but being the adaptable lad he was, he soon settled in and started most of the remaining matches that season. He even finished as the team's top scorer during their FA Cup run, netting against Chasetown, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and Middlesbrough. Sadly, Cardiff fell at the final hurdle, losing 1-0 to Portsmouth in the final. The start of the 2008-09 season saw Whittingham continue on the right, netting his first of the season in a 2-1 League Cup win over Milton Keynes Dons. Then disaster struck. He ruptured his ankle ligaments during a 2-1 win over Crystal Palace in November, an injury that was expected to sideline him for up to 3 months. It was a cruel blow, yet Whittingham was not that kind of boy who would surrender so easily. Hence, he fought his way back ahead of schedule, making a late substitute appearance in a 1-1 draw with Reading on Boxing Day, and the lad was made of stern stuff for sure. Whittingham started the 2009-10 season off with a bang. First, he scored a penalty in a 4-0 thrashing of Scunthorpe United in the first ever competitive match at the brand spanking new Cardiff City Stadium, then continued to go from there, scoring in consecutive rounds of the League Cup against Dagenham and Redbridge and Bristol Rovers. Having been handed responsibility as penalty taker, Whittingham's league goal tally quickly rose to 3, with strikes against Sheffield Wednesday and Derby County. The lad was on fire. A brace against Watford was followed up with goals against Crystal Palace and Coventry City, before the obvious hat trick against Sheffield United. Nobody was surprised when he picked up the October Player of the Month award. He curled in an exceptional free kick during a 3-2 win over Sheffield Wednesday in April, and was then named in the 2009-10 PFA Team of the Year for the championship the very next day. What a week it was. The lone arrival of Craig Bellamy saw Whittingham deployed in a new central midfield role for the 2010-11 season, and how he flourished. Gaffer Dave Jones was waxing lyrical about him left, right, and center. But even the best have their off days. After netting 8 penalties last season, Whittingham missed his first 2 spot kicks of this campaign. Jones had little option but to relieve him of penalty duties. Whittingham was on penalty duties again soon enough, and bagged in a 2-1 win against Coventry City. He'd already scored a double of free kicks against Bristol City a couple of days earlier, proving he was still a dead ball specialist. Then came the magic, a fantastic volley against Barnsley that was so good it was voted the Football League Goal of the Year for 2011. Unfortunately, Cardiff missed promotion for a second successive season, and promptly speculation about Whittingham's future began to spill. Boys, Cardiff's first foray into the Premier League started with a real bang. They sent the champions Manchester City packing, then disposed of Fulham. Whittingham scored his first in 9 years against Hull City, a fairy tale start that was to be unfortunately short-lived, as Cardiff were relegated after only 1 season in the top flight. A bitter pill to swallow, but that is football as it goes. In July 2014, Whittingham proved his loyalty to the Bluebirds by signing a new 3-year deal that would keep him in the Welsh capital until 2017. The campaign may have proved a disappointing one for Cardiff, finishing an 11th placed finish, their worst in 8 years. But Whittingham's class class shone through. He was even selected in the Football Manager Team of the Decade at the Football League Awards. The lad was a legend, no two ways about it. Cardiff rejected 2 bids from unnamed clubs for Whittingham in summer 2015. Manager Russell Slade termed him the club's kingpin, and rightly so. Whittingham scored a brace in a 4-1 win over Brighton and Hove Albion to surge past John Toshak and Hughie Ferguson in the club's all-time leading scorers list in English league competitions. Still, despite his heroics, Cardiff missed out on the playoffs at the end of the season. So when Neil Warnock took over as manager in October 2016, Whittingham was out in the cold. For someone that had given so much to the club, it would have been a bit hard on the palate. But when he played his final home match against Newcastle in 2017, he received a standing ovation from the Cardiff faithful when he was replaced, a fitting tribute indeed to a true club legend. On June 13, 2017, Whittingham opened the next chapter in his career by joining newly relegated League One club Blackburn Rovers on a 2-year contract. Bittersweet for Cardiff fans, Warnock discussed the traits that ultimately saw Whittingham move on. He'd even offered him a 1-year extension, but had made it clear his playing time would be limited. A proper gent, that Warnock. But alas, it was not to be. On 31st of August 2018, the contract between Whittingham and Blackburn was cancelled by mutual consent. It was a surprise end to his time at Ewood Park, with a number of fans scratching their heads in bewilderment as to what had gone on behind closed doors. He retired and then went silent for a while until the news broke out all of a sudden in 2020. His life was cut short. The sad fact that he died in March 2020 at such a tender age of only 35 years was really a kick in the teeth, not only for Cardiff City supporters, but indeed for all the football fraternity. Such a sad story. Just one fall in some local pub for Barry stole from him a well-promising life and left gaping holes in the hearts of those who loved and knew him. Star-crossed, poor boy gets drunk, plays with his buddies, tumbles down the flight of stairs. Every player or fan who'd seen him play knew they'd seen something special, a talent that wasn't going to be forgotten anytime soon. Yet behind the footballer, there was a family heartbroken. He had left behind a wife Amanda, a young son William, and another little lad Seb, who was born 2 months after his dad's passing. It was one of those tragedies that nobody could understand. News of his death devastated Cardiff City supporters, and yet through their pain came a typical Bluebirds response as fans rallied around the Whittingham family with an offering of support and kindness in their darkest hour. Amanda was touched by such generosity, the messages, donations, and even surprises from people she had never met. It reminded her that even in the blackest of times, there was still good in the world. A commemorative match was played between Cardiff City and Aston Villa in memory and honor of Peter in November 2022, wherein Cardiff even retired his old number 7 jersey. The family came together at the Vale Resort to talk about memories of him and hopes for the future. It was a long time coming with the pandemic delaying the tribute, but finally the fans had their chance to pay respects to the player that brought so much joy to the Welsh capital. But the match itself was so much more than any friendly. It was about remembering all the positives, celebrating Peter's life and legacy, but it was also about raising money for the PW7 Foundation, a charity in Peter's name, committed to making a difference in the lives of underprivileged children right across the UK. Peter Whittingham had a left foot that could bend it like Beckham and a heart as big as the pitch he graced. His memory will no doubt live on in every thunderous cheer that smacks around Cardiff City Stadium. That's it for this one. If you're a fan of football icons, make sure to check out our other videos too.